My DM's trying to kill me. DMs exist in a strange space within a game because at once, yes, your DM is trying to kill your character. On the other hand, they're not. The key distinction is that a DM should be having opponents that want to kill the player characters try to kill the player characters. When the DM themselves, as a person, are trying to kill the characters, that's when the DM has broken the contract. The DM exists in a weird nebulous space as far as games go, because in most games, tabletop or MMOs, you're either friends with everybody at the table or your opponents. Monopoly, you're trying to just decimate everybody else around you so that you can be king of the board. But in D&D or any standard role-playing game, the DM sits in a position where they're trying to kill your character, but on the other hand, they're not. And a key distinction on determining whether you're playing with a good DM or there is danger is if the DM is controlling characters and NPCs and monsters that are trying to kill your characters because they're motivated that way, or whether the DM as a person views it as their job to try to kill your characters. Because the game is best when the DM is running through the motivations of the NPCs, determining which ones do have murderous intent, whether it's animalistic instincts or it's because they just want to steal all your gold, and whichever is the case, the motivations for these NPCs is paramount to the DM's decisions. While on the other hand, the DM's just an asshole. They're either coming to the game thinking that it is a competition, which it's not, or they're coming to the game with a chip on their shoulder of some type, wanting to prove something to someone somewhere that's probably not even in the room playing, and they're taking out their frustrations or their animosities or their hurt and pain on the players. If you're friends with somebody that's going through this, you can probably help them, or hopefully you can help them deal with the distinction between reality and what's hurting them in the moment versus at the game, and maybe the realization that they're hurting the other players just, on the basic level of not playing the game right. You could make some arguments that the DM should be focused on killing the players. If you're running an old school Tomb of Horrors adventure or Tomb of Horrors-esque adventure, then yeah, but that's all up front. The general idea would be during a session 0, you would state to the other players, hey, I'm going to run Tomb of Horrors. Or you don't even have to say which one. You could say, hey, I'm going to run an adventure that is going to be mortality sufficient. It's going to be living PC deficient. And so, have an extra character or two ready to roll up to come back into the game, because you'll most likely die once or twice, maybe 3 times through this adventure. And then the players have a heads up and they know what to expect going in. It's like you can just walk into a movie theater and randomly pick out a movie to go to, and maybe you'll enjoy it or maybe you won't. But for a lot of people, they're going to want to know if they're going into a horror movie. And they're going to want to know if they're going into a G-rated, kind of spooky, Halloween-esque fun ride type of children's horror, or they're going to go into rated R, Exorcist, The Thing, The Shining, and be confronted with these things, or Hereditary or Get Out for some more recent examples. All fantastic films. I love all of those movies. They're great. But I also like horror, and I like subjecting my players to horror when I can. But that's basically it for this video. It's just it's interesting to note that the DM is in a socially awkward position, because if any player at the table is in competition or in rivalry or animositistic, is ready to fight the other players, it's the DM. Players can get into things here and there, and they can have their arguments and, go full party, try to kill each other, which is a whole separate thing. But the players that instigate the stabby time with the party are likely going to be the same kind of DMs that try to just kill all the players, and that's their goal. Often without telling the players that that's what kind of campaign it's going to be. So it's a tightrope walk, essentially, because I know one of the funnest moments for me as a DM in the game is when I realize, oh, the threat that the players are up against might kill them. Because in my experience, it doesn't happen that much. There's, with an eye towards some type of, adventure balance, usually the players do fine in a combat. Sometimes they're hard pressed, but usually they do fine. If I'm running a pre-made adventure, then everything's out the window because I'm following that outline and what they suggest or what they have written in the adventure. So if the players go to an area where that has creatures or enemies far above their level that are trying to kill the players, then they might die. But in homebrew and in using my own adventures, they rarely die. Usually in first level, when things can be a little unbalanced in D&D 5e. Haven't encountered that in Pathfinder, but I've only run Pathfinder 2nd Edition for one group of players, and they're no longer level 1, and none of them died. So that could also be on me for not balancing encounters hard enough, which maybe I should make them harder, because they're now 3rd level. And the problem that arises, at least for group dynamic, is all of a sudden it becomes clear that I may be able to kill a player character, and I get a little giddy. I get excited. My facial expressions could be considered happy, joyful, and so far nothing bad has come out of that yet. But they know to be scared when I get excited. But I don't want them to think, and I don't want to in actuality be aiming for those moments. Like I want to create adventures and encounters where the players will be challenged, because otherwise, it's a cakewalk. Having a cakewalk every now and again is great, especially the higher levels they get. I feel that it's important to, hey, you remember these things that used to kick your butt and were a really hard encounter a couple levels ago? Look at what you can do now, and you're just swimming through the blood of your enemies. But I don't want them to interpret my joy and giddiness as a personal attack on the player. I want them to understand that, ooh, this is exciting for me because now I'm really not sure whether a player character is going to survive or not. And often when one goes down, then more can go down. So as soon as the first domino starts to fall, or looks like it's about to fall, you know, it's a rare occurrence and it's something I rarely get to see, and it could completely change how the campaign is going. So it's a very exciting unknown event that is starting to occur, and that's primarily the joy I get from it. But there is a sadistic streak. I'm not gonna, I don't want to falsely lie, or no, I don't want to lie, but I don't want to use the cliche of I don't want to lie, or I'm not going to lie to you, because, I mean, hopefully we're just going base assumption, yeah, we don't want to do that. But the idea is I get a lot of joy out of evoking emotions in my players. And the easiest way to do that generally is horror and fear of losing a player character. And those two combined make a great cocktail for inducing emotions in your players. And so once the players start to realize, oh, they're in trouble if they don't really concentrate and figure out the best approach to get out of this, whether it's running or using abilities they normally save for their characters to use later, then that brings out some emotion in them, which I enjoy. If I could be consistently funny in a non-anachronistic way, then I would probably use that a lot. Excuse me. I'd probably use that a lot as well. But my in-game humor tends to miss, and then I may default to using bad puns or something more modern to try to save my failed joke but that always just goes to ruin and just makes it an even worse joke. And so groaning is probably one of my least favorite emotions to evoke in my players, if that's an emotion. Groaning, is it shame at knowing me? Like, oh, I'm friends with this guy doing this terrible, that was so dumb. What a dumb joke. Anyway, so the idea is you want to walk that line as a DM of not going after players. If you find yourself targeting a player because of the player and not because of what their player character has done, then you need to check yourself. You need to take a step back, look at what you're doing and why you're doing it. Why are you targeting this player? You want to have a in-game reason to target a character, divorced of who the player is. And so, the best way to do that is the flashy spellcasters are almost always, if the flashy spellcasters come out of the shadows and do something flashy, it gets noticed, and that's going to make them a high target. And so just by default, if you're a player and you're playing a spellcaster of any kind, then you should know that the spells you cast are going to be noticed because of somatic or verbal components. You can't hide those. And so the spellcasters are going to be noticed. Now, I've also found that the hard-hitting melee types also get noticed a lot. If you're a player and you don't want to be noticed, be the only rogue or, stealth-focused ranger. I got a dog. Hi. Stealth-focused ranger that comes in to hide, and then, no. Hey. Here we go. No. Bimo. No. Hey. Hi. Are you DMing now? You want to do the video? You can do the video. All right. Hey, buddy. Hey, what a good boy. What a good boy. What a good boy. Yeah. So yeah, if you're flashy and melee, then you're gonna puppies, man. Uh, then yeah, like melee. This is noticeable, and it's. I feel a lot of DMs think, oh, the melee casters are the only thing that are going to be noticed on the battlefield. But when a fighter comes up and just sprays blood like this, then yeah, you're going to have some problems. There's going to be a lot of the bad guys that are going to notice the damage dealing fighter and barbarian coming after the players, and then they're either going to want to test their skill against such a powerful opponent, or they're going to flee. And that's the other thing a lot of DMs don't take into account. Maybe not a lot of DMs. I don't know. I'm making that up. That's a completely made up statistic. There are some DMs that forget that the bad guys usually have a sense of protecting their life or unlife for the undead. I've recently had a ghoul run because he saw the other ghouls drop, and now he's running from the party. Hi, buddy. Hey, you want to let go of my shirt? So, yeah, I guess we'll cut this short because I got to take care of this guy and maybe give him some attention. But, yeah, don't target your players. Target their characters, and target their characters for reasons that make sense to the NPCs that are doing the targeting. Because you're the DM, it's not up to you, it's up to the world. And you're letting the world flow through you. Thanks, and have a good day.